Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's episode played with my emotions, but that is what makes this series so good. Today I'm going to go over not only the differences in the game and the anime, but I'm also going to explain more on why 9S is changing the way that he is. So with that, I'm going to throw out the spoiler warning now, as I do go into both NieR Automata and Drakengard spoilers. But let's go ahead and talk about it. The episode starts off with silence. Basically, it's like the calm before the storm. Everyone is preparing for the battle that is to come. A2 is commander of the village right now and begins to give commands to the machines. She orders the squadron of rock throwers to begin their assault, which actually did a good amount of damage. Then she got the lance assault unit to help guard the village. And when the big machine lifeforms appear, A2 says she will take care of those. These are actually more Goliath class machines. According to the game, it says that they have no weakness, but looks like A2 found it by slicing into their heads. Outside of episode 7, when she fights 2B, and episode 17, we haven't really seen her fight much. Majority of episode 17, she was on the defensive more than offense. A2 and Pod notice that the enemy isn't that strong individually, and Pod points out that the enemy cluster does not have a commanding unit. These machines are just repeating a simple attack pattern. Then we hear the sounds of those terrible small bombers. They blow up the barrier that is protecting the village, and when A2 notices, she says, "Just you wait, I'll head over to help," but then thinks about it more. She is helping the machine life forms. She is slightly frustrated, but keeps moving to go help them. That blasted a real number on the guards that were by the barricade. Now in this moment, I feel like they understand just slightly the fear of dying, or at least the concept of it, because the husband is trying to protect his wife and she shouts out with concern. But like I said, not sure if it's understanding the concept compared to at least the game this time around. When A2 makes it back to everyone, Pascal also returns and takes out a good number of the machines. Apparently Pascal pulled out some equipment that he long since abandoned. The dude is decked out and ready to fight. 2 grenade launchers and a machine gun. He then shouts, his name is Pascal and he is the leader of this village, and says as long as there is light in his eyes, he will protect everyone. When Pascal starts to destroy the hostile machines, you may notice they reused a scene that was back in episode 2. It's also pretty crazy to look at all this destruction he is causing in order to save his village, but in the end he was able to save everyone, and everyone is looking in shock and awe, and it was pretty funny. The machines begin to celebrate that they won. Pod confirms that all the enemy units are gone. A2 is in a moment of smiling and relieved that Pascal was able to protect everyone, and Pod comes in basically saying, hey, I help protect everyone too. You're an old attack model. Do you have the ability to do long range attacks? So a thank you would be nice. And he basically killed the mood, as A2 points out to him. She describes it as destroying someone's good feelings. Pod asks to define the specific emotions depicted by feelings. A2 says, like I would know. As she watches the machine celebrate this victory, she then has a sweet smile on her face and says, it's not a bad feeling. Then they get back to the village and are continuing their celebration. A2 is watching and smiling, and the children come up to her and tell her that she protected them. And it's so cute hearing them say, big sis, and they're also thanking her, and she's laughing with them. But unfortunately, they are all of a sudden attacked by small bombers in the air. A2 is knocked out, and we're getting some visuals on what is happening, but I think it's more of a hearing type of thing, that since A2 is knocked out, like we're hearing things from her perspective. And sadly, this visual, we're seeing the village be attacked. You see the big sister being attacked, then the little sister is attacked, and the machine that wanted to marry the little sister is on the ground saying he failed to protect again. What he's referring to is the king because he's from the Forest Kingdom. Unfortunately, he also loses his life. And then A2 wakes up to everything on fire, and then she sees everyone is gone. She then begins to start yelling, God damn it, over and over again. And this is the part where I was talking about where it played with my emotions, because she literally just started opening up to these machines only to lose them so quickly. Also, I just got done watching episode 17 English dub as well, so this is really sad to watch. She notices that Pascal is still alive. Then she notices that there are some children still alive. A2 calls to Pascal and tells Pascal to get a hold of himself because he has children to protect. There are more machines on the way to their location, and A2 tells Pascal to take the children and run. She tells Pascal to take them to the resistance camp. Pascal promises to return to help. Now that Pascal is gone, it is A2's turn to take care of all the hostile machines. Then we get to 9S, and he's traveling to the desert, and it looks like one of the resource units is there. This is definitely different from the game. There was no resource unit here in the desert in the game. Pod is advising 9S that he needs to take a break because he's in no condition to fight, but of course he's just ignoring it. The letters for this one read Soulbox, which Soulbox is normally the one in the flooded city that we just saw in the last episode. But now we're already back to A2, and she's taking out all of the machine life forms, and they show the destruction of the village, and you see the cart the machines rolled A2 around when she was damaged. Then you see what I think is the most interesting thing from this episode is Emil's tree is also on fire. This this area was more of a shrine to Pascal. If you remember back in episode 5, Pascal could hear Emil's voice say, "You have to live." And that changed Pascal from a machine that would spend the rest of his days fighting to the pacifist that we know today. I do wonder if this anime will do more with it. Yoko Taro did confirm that Emil recreated Kaine's house, which was why it was underground, and said that the original is still around. So I wonder if this is an opportunity when we'll get to see him again. Pod confirms that Goliath type unit is on its way to the resistance camp. Pod says it will get there in 4,027 seconds, which is about an hour and 7 minutes and 7 seconds. Now I couldn't find anything special with why these numbers were picked. I tried looking up everything I could think of. I looked up the world record for speedruns, producers' birthdays, Square Enix's address, etc, etc. Nothing really stuck out. But anyway, A2 starts to make a run for it, and Pod tells A2 that she is in no shape to take on a Goliath type. A2 points out that Pod's calculations are that good, huh? Well, you know what they say, times like this, suck it. And then she tells him to remember that. And I love that Pod recorded that and repeated it. Then she catches up to it and says she will fight back that thing right here. Now we get to the hidden reports. Report 1 says, why do the words created by the machine life forms function almost like prophecies? Now the first thought that came to my mind was the religious cult machines from the factory, which was actually run by the machine who was named after the philosopher Kierkegaard. Try saying that name 3 times fast. He believed that the expression of one's freedom is to commit to a certain meaning and make it true by taking a leap of faith. Now the problem is the machines took a literal leap of faith like we saw in the game, so it didn't exactly work out for them. Unless it's also about the long list of other philosophers in this game, but I'm actually leaning towards maybe Emil. Like I said in episode 5, Emil saved Pascal in a way. He heard Emil say, "You have to live," like you hear him yell at Kaine in NieR Reincarnation. This helped Pascal for the first time feel fear, but this report has me going down a rabbit hole of philosophy and religion and meaning, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. Then the second report says, we must also anticipate the worst possible outcome. Say what? What is this? Preparing for the worst possible outcome? Makes me yet again think about Drakengard 3 and Branch C. There was no hope for that branch. Mikhail had died, and that timeline was doomed, so Accord sealed it off. Are we prepping for something like this? I'm not sure. What are your guys' thoughts on this? We're back to 9S, and the voice of the machines is showing him memories of him from the last episode killing all of those machines. They are basically telling him that they will reward him for his accomplishments, and they present to him the Persistence Award. Pod can detect in the hanging machine. For 9S to be able to move forward, he will have to hack into the login port to the server within the subunit. But Pod warns 9S to be careful, because it is more than likely a trap, and he will either get infected or risk a reverse hack. But he states he doesn't care and hacks in. For a guy who wants to kill every machine, that's pretty reckless. Also in the novel, it states that he isn't trying to die. But also looking at this machine and how it's set up, I think back to number 6 hanging on the wall in Emil's mansion in NieR Reincarnation. I feel like this scene and the next scene is almost a homage to Emil's mansion. Did you guys get this same feeling? Or am I just crazy? He gets into the server, and the server is a type of library of sorts. This is replacing the maze from the game and consistently hacking the chests to find these documents. He goes through the documents and comes across the same document you would find in the game. The tower is a cannon aimed at the human server. Then another book lights up and he reads it, and it is the document he does not take very well. He wonders why machines are doing research on androids. Then he sees the information on the black box, and those of us that played the game will know that this is when he discovers that black boxes are made from machine life form cores. But we'll come back to that. The episode cuts back to A2 and she begins to release her limiter, but Pod interrupts her explaining how dangerous B mode is, and they actually removed it from newer models. She doesn't care as long as she stops that machine. And we see her activate her Berserker mode, and the Goliath goes in for the attack, and A2 is blocking the attack with her sword, which is pretty damn impressive. She jumps up and the Goliath machine goes in for her second attack, and she cuts off its arm. Pod warns her that because of the Berserker mode, the load on her has reached 180% of normal values, and instead of recommending her to stop attacking, he advises her to finish the battle quickly. And I also feel like in this episode, she's starting to listen to Pod more and taking into consideration his calculations, which is probably why I think this is becoming more of a mutual respect relationship. A2 says, "You're cheering me on." She will oblige Pod's requests and settle things quickly. Then we're back to 9S, and he's learning about the black boxes are made from machine lifeform cores. And that document even says that the consciousness of Yorha units and machine lifeforms share the same structure. He doesn't believe it. Now, from my point of view, when watching this show or even playing the game, I, as an outsider, Author looked at them as pretty much the same, as I'm sure a lot of people did. Machines and androids are not human, obviously. One just looks more human than the others. And the machines eventually evolve into more human-looking models, and even the Red Girls had said that they are modeled after androids. So for me watching, it is a little frustrating seeing 9S's reaction like this. He is smart, don't get me wrong, but he thinks just so little of the machines. For a guy who's very curious about things, he never once thought about this, but also in the anime, he was shown as more cold towards the machines and thinks very low of them. In the game, he was more curious by the machine's actions, but this goes back to Yoko Taro's theme. Yorha units are blind to the truth, and the operators with their masks don't speak the truth. 9S makes it to the core, and the core starts to glow, and it looks like it's a reverse hack. And now we're back to A2 fighting the Goliath, and her and Pod are trying to take this thing out. What was cool was seeing that whip being used like this. I know it can be used in the game, but I sure did not use this ability at all. A2 goes in for the final blow, like what 2B did in episode 1, but the machine fired its laser from its mouth, and Pod gets A2 out of there. She goes crashing down, no longer in Berserker mode, but then Pod detects a second Goliath machine coming. Then we all of a sudden see a second Goliath jump up in the air and does a dive kick into the other Goliath. A little fun fact, Yosuke Saito and Yoko Taro actually play the voices of the Goliath. But then we hear Pascal's voice coming from the machine. He explains that he found a broken unit on the way here, so he connected to that machine. And I love him making the Goliath flex like Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist. Pascal tells A2 to please rest assured. Thanks to you, the children are safely evacuated, and A2 smiles. Then we hear Pascal say the same line from the game, that he must protect the children. But then in the anime, he adds an extra line. So an enemy like this, I must simply kill. And now we're back to 9S, and he is in this hack. You can hear his past memories playing, and when he lands, you see the same thing like you see in the game. You see screens of different memories of 9S and 2B, and we almost start to see the same animation like in the opening, when 9S walks up to 2B, and instead of disappearing like in the opening, she changes into this blocky figure. And it looks like all of his memories are being erased, and he's begging it to stop because these are important to him. Now, obviously, I don't think this is actually happening, but the Red Girls are totally messing with him. It's just giving him a visual, and he's already had to deal with so much loss, he doesn't want to lose what he has left of his memories of 2B. He then attacks that block figure, telling it to stop messing with his memories, and you see an arm getting sliced off and then a leg of the figure getting sliced off. And he's yelling at it to give back his memories and return them to him. They are important to him, and it is his treasure. While he's continuing to stab that figure, he says 2B is mine, and mine alone. Going back to that same dialogue from Drakengard with the Cult of the Watchers.
All mine, Furiai, all mine, all mine, all mine. No man can have her, no man, not even Kaim.
That figure eventually turns back into 2B again, and you see him just stabbing her over and over again. And then it cuts back to him stabbing the core. Now, from the novel Long Story Short, it describes that he does say 2B is mine and mine only. This part in the episode was not actually in the game, so it was interesting to watch it play out. It also talks about how he realized he stabbed the core and not 2B, which I'm going to warn you guys now, this next part I'm going to describe, it gets pretty damn dark. I'm going to read this to you directly from the book. He asks the question, what was I doing? The back of his throat trembled and laughter welled up. I'll kill anyone that hurts 2B. I'll kill anyone that touches 2B. I'll kill anyone that comes near 2B. I'll kill anyone that looks at 2B. The only one allowed to look at 2B is me. The only one allowed to come near 2B is me. The only one allowed to touch 2B is me. The only one allowed to hurt 2B is me. His laughter didn't stop. Standing there, bent over, 9S kept laughing. It is also explained that 2B had died, and there was no longer a need for him to hold back. He didn't have to hide his thoughts or his desires for 2B. 2B would never know about them. The moment he realized this, he lost self-control. He was unable to control anything. He could feel everything bursting, everything shameful and dirty that he had pent up flowed out of him bit by bit. He receives the code, my curse, which I didn't think about it until now. For the password, my sin, this was referenced back in episode 16. 2B says, something dear to me, and then it shows a flashback of 2B strangling 9S from episode 12. Then the next text says, I kept breaking it, and is back to that same flashback, but this time 2B is crying over 9S's body. Then the next text says, my sin. Now, for my curse, I'm not seeing anything on that besides episode 1, and then also in the beginning of the game, when she asks if this never-ending cycle between life and death is a curse or a punishment. That's the only thing I can think of. Let me know if you guys notice anything else that I may have missed. But then we get the title screen debunked, which in the game is the ending when 2B self-destructs on the bunker. Then we get the puppet episode, and it starts with Pod activating a condensed conversation mode, which we have seen in the game, but I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. It reads, about the matter on hand, scheduling is in a critical state. At this rate, a large-scale incident may occur. They're all exhausted and require immediate attention. Proposal, respite doubled as maintenance. Agreement, however, stopping the work process would be grave incident on its own. The timing of all the items they call discs will shift as well, which will likely affect the sales of said items. What do you think about that aspect? Similar to how we have duties, they also have duties they must fulfill, just as sacrifices they've already made. It will likely be as such in the future. Pod 42, sensing contradiction in your statement. Affirmative. The fundamental solution to this problem has yet to be found. Or perhaps people know the solution, but are intentionally not executing such actions. They both agree that it is the end of their conversation. Pod says that abnormalities detected in vitals of Unit 9S. Situation becoming dire. Action must be taken immediately. It also looks like they're canceling the presentation of multiple endings for this episode and future episodes, which tells me there's no more puppet shows because shit is about to go down for these next few episodes. Also, from what Pod just said about 9S and how 9S is saying 2B is mine and only mine, it makes me think that he's already infected with the logic virus. But what did you guys think of this episode? I noticed that 9S hasn't discovered 2B's flight unit yet to find her message, which is in the opening sequence. I wonder if they're actually going to show that or skip that, because there was even a scene in the opening where 9S is talking to the commander about how humans are extinct, but they skipped that in the anime. So from that point, I always just looked at the opening as teasers from the game, but not necessarily something they will add to the anime. Looking at these changes with Pascal, looking at the philosopher that he's based off of, the real Pascal is actually a downer, which is the opposite of Pascal for the majority of the game. The real philosopher Pascal thought that greatness of human beings consisted in their ability to know their wretchedness. In the game, when tragedy hits Pascal and those children machines commit suicide, he eventually comes around to the same conclusion as the real Pascal. He understands the wretchedness of himself. He realized he may have made a mistake teaching them fear. When it comes to the player, the game makes them face their own wretchedness on what to do with Pascal when you get that option to delete his memories or destroy him. But also, I think this time around maybe things will be a little bit different, but who knows? In the game, things went wrong because the machines were not taught the fear of dying, which was that wretchedness that I spoke about earlier. But this time around, he did. So I wonder what his wretchedness will be this time around. Also, what is this wretchedness that A2 is going to have to face, I wonder? I do not know what the next episode holds for us, and I'm excited for that fact alone. But with that, now I pass on the question to you guys. What do you think about this episode? What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think of those reports from Accord? They seemed a little bit more mellow, I guess, this time around, but they still left me wondering. I have more questions than answers. Thanks for all the continued support. I do have a link to the Discord that I made if you guys want to join it. It's going to be in the description. I appreciate all the help that you guys give me. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.